Welcome to Denver Theory Lab.
Denver Theory Lab? Okay.
Denver Theory Lab. Let's do it.
Welcome to Denver Theory Lab. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Kyle.
Where we aim to investigate and explore theoretical and practical ideas, conspiracies, events, and practices from an objective point of view to expand our range of thinking. You can make donations at Denver Theory Lab on PayPal at Denver Theory Lab. You can contact us on Facebook, Instagram, or email us at denvertheorylab@gmail.com. Please send us any questions, comments, or topic suggestions. All right, we are carrying on part 2 of the Pole Star Shift Atlantis failure 3-part series here today. What do you got for us, Kyle?
Well, I guess just to recap for our listeners of where we left things off at our last episode, we were, looking at a few sites around the world that appear to be from commonly dated to be about built around the end of the last ice age. So sites like Gobekli Tepe, Serpent Mound, the Great Pyramids, all these sites are thought to have been built right around the end of the last ice age. And what we talked about in the last episodes is these sites could be memorials to some disaster or to the world before whatever event brought the last ice age to a close. So, and we were overall talking about how as the world moves through the precession of the equinox, over a long cycle, we get new pole stars. So for listeners, if you're familiar with the precession of the equinox, it's just we go through all the signs of the constellation over a long, roughly 26,000 year cycle. And as we go through that cycle, we have different pole stars. Currently, Polaris is the pole star, but in the past it wasn't. So, we talked about the ancient world a lot in our last episode and talked about the last pole star, Thuban, and pretty much ancient Egypt and the height of that world. And so where that leaves us now is kind of just examining the world through this lens of, is the sky a big clock that we can use to measure when calamity or when big changes are coming to the world? So if we go back to Gobekli Tepe has some pillars that are about nearly 12,000 years old that are aligned with the two stars that were guiding astronomers and sailors in the world for a very, very long time before Polaris came into view. So in the ancient world, and I never even really thought about this when I thought about the ancient world, but in the ancient world, in the world of the Greeks that we know, Plato and the medieval world, and all the way up until you get to closer to 1500, there was no pole star. So when navigators were traveling, they used two different stars that they referred to as the pillars of the pole. And these two stars were, and I might not pronounce this right, but Deneb, Deneb, and Cygnus, Cygnus. So those two stars were the two pillars, as they were referred to near the poles. And we also have two pillars in Gobekli Tepe aligned with these stars, suggesting that Gobekli Tepe served as a calendar function, but not an annual calendar, more like a precession marker for them to measure when the world is moving into another epoch in the precession of the equinox. But the most puzzling thing I always thought about with Gobekli Tepe is the fact that it was intentionally buried. So in that part, I've never seen an answer I really like for to make it make sense. But the builders of that place, right after sometime 12,000 years ago, after they built these massive stone pillars, they buried it.
Did they bury just the pillars or the entire
structure?
And
it was this massive. Let's see if I can pull up some
can you show me pictures of that?
The Gobekli, and they've only unearthed a portion of it, and the other area around it is so much more massive. But here's like drawings of what
What
they
part
think
of
it
the
looked
world
like.
is this in again? Turkey?
This is in Turkey. And I mean, it's thought to be like one of the world's first temple complexes. There's all sorts of competing ideas about what people did there. I think the original ideas were they humans gathered there to have animal sacrifices and like an annual meeting. But there's just so many curious things with this place. You got the pillars with the infamous handbag. The Sumerian.
Oh, yeah. How every deity has a handbag and some sort of like electrical instrument, like an ankh or something else on the other hand.
Yeah, but the bag.
A bag or a basket. Mm-hmm. How was Gobekli Tepe buried? Was it buried in like clay or
Sand and rock. But
sand and rock?
But they filled it in. They filled it in with rock and rubble. But you can tell that whoever
It was intentionally buried. It wasn't like disaster.
Right. It was intentionally buried, not by nature. Mankind buried this structure, and then it ended up being just found by some farmer, who was digging on his property and found one of the pillars, and that prompted all the archaeology that currently exists there. But it's got some very strange pillars. A lot of pillars that seem to depict creatures and animals that live in the world today. Some depict creatures that don't live in the world today. That I guess it's easy to dismiss as mythological. But anytime I run into something like that, where my mind goes is kind of the same spot I go for, like the Chinese zodiac. Why would there be 11 real animals and one fake one? It makes me think that the fake one,
the dragon's not fake. It's just
extinct.
Extinct.
Well, that's my view on it too. But a lot of people will say
like
they take the
dragons.
National Geographic view that it's just all of our fears morphed together over time. And I was like, or they were drawing a real animal.
These carvings at Gobekli, beyond like the handbag, do they resemble any other culture?
No particular culture. The handbag is the one thing that seems to be iconic. But this area
Large
around Turkey.
headdresses there.
Well, that's not Gobekli Tepe.
Oh, that's
but,
Turkey.
Yeah, that area around Turkey though is there's just a whole lot of archaeological spots there. That's one of there in that same region of Turkey is one of the most famous sites thought to be where Noah's Ark would have landed. And if we look at the world through the lens of these pole shifts and potentially natural disasters coming with it, then you can kind of incorporate stories like the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is the original Noah's Ark story, the Epic of Gilgamesh. You can incorporate that into this view of maybe, whatever cataclysm happened and the people who survived, that's how we get our post-flood myths, the Manu or Noah, Epic of Gilgamesh, all of those things, And so the one potential connection here is there's a famous pillar there at Gobekli Tepe, pillar number 43. It's the vulture stone pillar, and it's pretty famous. Okay, as soon as I type in vulture stone, it comes up.
Google heard you.
Yeah. So the vulture stone pillar is the one where it's got this funny looking bird, seems to be holding something. You've got your handbags.
It's like a humanoid bird.
It's
Not even humanoid, really. It's just a bird-ish figure.
Well,
It looks like an arachnid below it and some other birds.
some have suggested this one is meant to like be one to mark the comet. So like the bird's holding something, and so vultures feed on carcasses. So, but it's just interesting to put together the scorpion, which a lot of times the scorpion in different cultures, the scorpion is also synonymous with the phoenix. So like in our current zodiac, Scorpio, if you go back like 1,000 years, Scorpio would have been a phoenix in any zodiac. But the vulture is a bird that feeds on carcasses, and you've got that infamous
cleanup crew.
handbag, right? So you get just these images of creatures that live in a desert, creatures that feed on corpses and that sort of thing, and then the infamous bag that's seen all over the world rising from that. So if Plato was right, if there was this ancient civilization that fell a long time ago with Atlantis, and if we suppose that they did fall with the changing of the pole star, the transition of the pole star to Thuban which was the pole star in ancient Egypt, from whatever the pole star would have been during Atlantis, then, if there were any survivors of this, they would have spread out throughout the world. And I think that's where this whole theory kind of matches more with stuff that you hear people like Graham Hancock say, Randall Carlson with their Younger Dryas impact theory. This idea that mankind was civilized a long time ago, 12,000 years ago, at the time when Gobekli Tepe was built. And the survivors of whatever civilization was around back then, commonly referred to as Atlantis, spread out after the fall of their land and went to coastal spots around the world, went to spots like Egypt, went to Central America to where, Teotihuacan is and where the Incas are. And they pretty much proposed that the reason we see some of the most prominent cultures rising in these key spots near the water and not anywhere inland is because there were refugees from Atlantis or some other civilization that were really responsible for what these civilizations built. And a lot of these civilizations, they don't claim to have built the things that they're like the big pyramids or the other things. They don't claim to have built some of them themselves. Or the ones that do have stories about them being built, they claim that some great teacher, like the story of Quetzalcoatl, coming and instructing them. And do you think that's just a mythology of a real god coming from the sky, or is that advanced people coming to help rebuild civilization?
I think a godlike being could be anybody that's got greater knowledge than you.
Yeah.
And if they've got greater science, most magic is viewed as an unknown science, but it later on, as technology advances, we realize that it wasn't really magic. There was some sort of science involved. That
the others didn't understand.
Yeah, that the others didn't understand.
Yeah. Well, and I think the magic that or the real knowledge that even today we would probably describe as magic is their understanding of vibration. And, as we've been recording these episodes, I keep trying to learn more about the science behind sound and vibration and all of that. And even people, when they're doing the remote viewing, apparently they use the sounds the Buddhist monks makes, of them just constantly chanting and that. And what they describe it doing when they do that constantly is it eventually puts their entire body into a vibrational state that, then they can use to send their consciousness different spaces. But, and the more I read about it, the more I keep hearing that these ancient civilizations were able to move stone and manipulate things with just sound, with the sound, and not just sound, with the sound of their voice, which is, I find, just so cool. I was like, I want to learn how to do that. But, if we fast forward through time and we look at the ancient world that we call ancient, and they were incredibly fixated on trying to make the order on Earth mirror the order they saw in the heavens or the order they saw in the skies. So, like with Stonehenge, with the pyramids, with all these spots, they're lining it up to match the order they see in the sky because they're placing this over-important, or maybe not over-important, they're placing this very big importance on the order of things in the sky. And is that because they look at the sky and think visitors came from there, or do they understand that there is some sort of energy, or do they have some sort of understanding of energy alignments when they look at the stars and how all that lines up and moves? What do you think?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know. I kind of went down a small rabbit hole of what other things are in Turkey, and there's many archaeological sites in Turkey, so I feel like there's some sort of significance in that part of the world. And I don't know, maybe a godlike creature would coax the current civilization to build these structures so that it's carried on beyond their rule and beyond that century or beyond the many generations to come, so that maybe Gobekli Tepe was one of those same things. It was meant to mirror something, and that's why they were covering up to hide it from.
Once it maybe no longer applied?
maybe no longer applied, or somebody else was coming into power and they didn't want these people to have this knowledge. You know, there's the underground city of Derinkuyu,
Yeah.
which is in Turkey as well.
And that also kind of, you think about that when it comes to, hey, was there some big event? That's what they. How many people can that place supposedly hold? I remember seeing it was
I
like.
remember it was like 15,000 or something.
I think it's more than that. I think it, and it connects to another underground city like 5 miles away.
Located in the Cappadocia region of Turkey, is more than 85 meters below the surface of Earth and consists of an 18-level tunnel system. A local found one of the entries in 1963. After moving through an investigation, some digging, passage was discovered, later followed by 600 similar discoveries in other private houses.
A maximum capacity cited at 20,000 to 50,000.
That's huge.
It's got.
That's a stadium.
Yeah, they had areas for schools, religious chapels, stables for animals, whales, like whatever they built there, they intended to not come up from the surface for a long time.
Yeah.
And then a 5-mile tunnel leading to another underground settlement nearby. Just, it makes me, ugh. Was there a nuclear war? Is this the bunker from the past,
Well, yeah, there's been hinting that there was some sort of nuclear war or something similar, to where there was large energy weapons that basically melted sand into glass and structures, the meltology again, like melting structures into solid stone, or,
it's almost comforting, though, to think that it would be nuclear war. But maybe if everything's cyclical, if it's all a big circle, if what we've done before we'll do again, or I find that the more uncomfortable view for me is to think that humans didn't do this. That it's just like we can imagine a great flood being a natural cycle, not something humans would do to one another. Is there something that could happen on the surface naturally that would make us need to go underground?
Potentially. Asteroid.
Yeah. And then...
But they had to have enough forethought that...
To know
to build a structure underground for 20,000 people.
Right. They had to know something was coming.
Yeah, it wasn't like, oh, let's go underground now. Let's start digging. No, it was, okay, centuries and centuries of digging.
But the way it's built, it doesn't look to me like something built by a civilization that has nuclear bombs and everything that like we have today. But maybe that's just because I have the skewed viewpoint of thinking that the only way to have these things would be for it to look like our world does today. Maybe you could have these things in a world that doesn't use metal everywhere on on buildings and that sort of things.
Well, there's the Indian structures that were dug into the ground, like I forget what they're called, but they're entire structures made out of one single stone that they dug down into the ground. So they eventually started carving the steeple before they dug the foundation. Kailasa Temple was carved out of one rock from the top down. They basically carved it into a mountain.
In India?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it suggests we're dealing with a civilization with technology we can't comprehend. To be able to carve something like that into a mountain, and usually those things are done with like such precision and perfection, not like we could do today. It would like implies like a laser or a computer, just about, if we were to try it.
Right.
Have you heard of Lake Van in Turkey?
No.
That's another really cool spot, and apparently a lot of the conquerors throughout history, Alexander the Great, Xerxes, they all wanted to visit this area. It's Turkey's largest lake, and it's how do you say this? Endoheric. It has no natural outlet, so making it a high alkaline, soda-rich lake. And there's a whole bunch of stuff at the bottom of this lake.
Like structures, it looks like?
Yeah. So there were other, of course, cultures who built along this lake, but the underwater archaeology in recent years, this was 2017 that they found this, they found a 3,000-year-old fortress at the bottom of the lake. Supposedly 3,000-year-old fortress, but it's at the bottom of the lake, And the hypothesis is that that during about 3,000 years ago or soon after, the water level was lower, and over time the lake rose due to volcanic activity. But still, I mean, you look at the precision on those blocks underwater, and it just makes you wonder of what was going on in this area. And this is also the area where the famous Crusaders cross, the Solar Cross, they found it at the bottom of this lake.
What?
Yes.
Tell me that story real quick.
So the Solar Cross, also known as like the Templar Cross, they found it in numerous places. It's been found in spots like the bottom of Lake Van, where you see it's just the cross in a little circle. So it almost looks like like a target, if you will. But it's a very distinctive symbol. Yeah, it's a very distinctive symbol, though. The Solar Cross, also known as the Templar Cross.
Yeah.
But why would it be built into stonework at the bottom of Lake Van that's supposedly 3,000 years old? That's 1,000 years before Christ, supposedly. So it's like, well, what's this symbol really about? What tradition is really being carried on?
I think the Knights Templar are a lot older than they say they are.
I think they found them their whole story is about the story of their founding is like supposedly while in Jerusalem, they met up with some other people from the East who had this story about a civilization that fell a long time ago. They had a story about like Atlantis and knowledge being passed down since then.
Yeah.
And then they formed their little group. Turkey's a very cool area and a whole lot of old stuff there. And yeah, it's Cappadocia. That one's beyond cool. And I think when I look at that spot, I just imagine that I bet you people went down into that and probably didn't come out for generations.
Derinkuyu, yeah. I mean, well, yeah. How do you get food, though?
Well, they had animals down in there.
What about fresh produce that requires sun?
That's a good question. They had livestock and food stores, but maybe they ate mushrooms?
Potentially.
Well, right now, if you put us underground, we could grow food.
Yeah, well, we've got lights that generate UV light.
Well, I mean, what about the Dendera light bulb?
Dendera light bulb?
The Egyptian light bulb? You know what I'm
that creates sunlight?
I'm going to spell this wrong.
Something can grow under that light bulb, I guess?
Well, we only have the carving of the light bulb, and we don't know that it's, as a matter of fact, it's only in recent years that people have thought this is a light bulb, but the Egyptian carving, it very much looks like a light bulb. And, they built so much stuff deep underground. There's no scorch marks from tar or nothing to indicate they were burning torches.
Anything, yeah.
So it's like, how could they see underneath there? And when I look at this, I'm like, well, that kind of looks like electrical components to me. I mean, it looks in an artistic way as if they've almost like made it look like something grown, like this is a snake inside of a jar. But that looks like something mechanical.
That's potentially another explanation that bioluminescence played part in that.
Yeah.
Or bioluminescence played part in illumination underground for civilization. Is that a conceptualization there?
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, that thing, is the part that more than anything looks technological to me.
Well,
because, how do you get food if you're underground like that?
Well, if they're down there for years and years, they figured it out.
And then I would imagine...
Maybe they're cannibals.
Yeah. You got to run out of food supply eventually with that, though, right? If you're cannibals. It was very, very intelligently built. They have air shafts for this structure built into high terrain locations, and the air shafts come in at angles so they would never be flooded with groundwater. So air shafts, going up in mountaintops. So as if they knew that they needed to get air from high up. And I mean, it's not something simple people built, for sure. They knew what they were doing when they were building this spot.
Well, yeah, it looks all very structurally sound, even looking at it. Like they built sacred geometry into the arches and whatnot because they knew exactly, how far apart each pillar needed to be for support. And yeah, just it's immaculate.
A 5-mile tunnel going from this one to the other. Let's see, what's the other underground city? Underground complex to other underground complex. Oh, I can't pronounce. So that's Derinkuyu. This one's Kayamakil. Apparently, it's 8 or 9 kilometers, 5, almost 6 miles long tunnel that goes from the Derinkuyu
Kaimakli?
underground structures to the other underground structure. And with that, you just got to wonder, why would you need a 5-mile tunnel to connect these two underground spots?
Because you don't want to go above ground.
Guys, that's the only answer.
They want to stay underground.
That's the only
Or
logical
remain
answer.
unseen, at least.
And would we really just be hiding underground? I mean, how elusive are humans if there's something on the surface we're hiding from? It must be a big stupid animal if we've got to hide from it and they don't know we're there. Anything else, you would think they would know we're underground.
Maybe there were still dinosaurs at the time.
Hey, maybe.
Big dinosaurs.
Yeah, and then they all run underground to hide out from it.
And you hide out, the dinosaur can't get in. You don't have to worry about them sneaking in at night.
I tend to go with the surface probably wasn't habitable, and they had to remain underground for a while, and then probably when they came back up, a lot of the knowledge from when they originally went down was probably lost, And then we have I would imagine, the people who came out of those caves came out and spread out around the world, and they found stuff like the pyramids, and they set up shop and said, "This is my palace now,"
Maybe.
And then they have to start piecing together everything from the world that once was.
All right, so where are we at on? We were talking about pillars.
Yeah, so there's in the esoteric world, there's a huge focus on pillars, really, in every temple. In Freemasonry, there's 2 pillars that are a key to all of their esoteric drawings and everything. The pillars of Joachim and I'm not sure you pronounce the other one. It looks like Boaz.
Boaz.
Is that how you pronounce that? 2 pillars of...
Boaz was biblical, but I'm not sure it's the same reference.
So Boaz and Joachim. The 2 pillars supposedly built into Solomon's temple. It's these are key to Masonic rituals. So supposedly for like the Masonic initiate, before entering into Solomon's temple or before entering into like viewing God, you've got to pass through these 2 pillars. So these 2 pillars have a lot of symbolic meaning, but what I'm proposing is that their origin might be the 2 stars that were serving the place of our pole star, the pillars of the pole, for nearly 1,000 years, for a little over 1,000 years, from the collapse of the ancient world, the collapse of ancient Egypt and all of that, until Polaris came into being. Those 2 pillars, anybody trying to navigate, if you were getting in a boat in the Mediterranean or in the ocean, those 2 stars were your compass. They were gonna guide the way, So if the age of Thuban, if that pole star was a time when the world was rebuilding after the collapse of Atlantis or whatever world came before it, then in their world we see a focus on mirroring the heavens and trying to do everything they can to keep the stability of the world. The ancient Egyptians saw the pharaoh as not just a god king, but as they saw his role as to keep the heaven and the earth aligned. So, it's often talked about with the pyramids that they were built by slaves, and the pyramid builders must have been these cruel people to have the pyramids built. But in the way that archaeologists talk about the world view of the ancient Egyptians, they were obsessed with the afterlife. They were obsessed with what comes after this world and not so much focused on the material life. And if they saw the pharaoh as the embodiment of the living axis of the world, and he was trying to create order and harmony with the building of the pyramid, then, of course, there's the viewpoint that the pyramid's his tomb, and if you take that viewpoint, even and still fit in their focus on the afterlife, then by building the pyramid, they're securing a spot for themselves in the afterlife next to the pharaoh. But if it's not about that, if it's not about a tomb, then they were doing their part to add to the harmony of the world with the building of the pyramid, every single one of them, with their consciousness, with, especially if you're moving stones with the sound of your voice, if this is some high civilization that has a deeper understanding of consciousness in the world than we do, then what was the building of the pyramid project? Because it is something that has stood the test of time. They've encoded resonance into the architecture. Is it just this resonance stabilizer like we've talked about in other episodes? Or is it something deeper than that? Have they kind of encoded in a way that we can see in the material world? Have they encoded harmony into the very fabric of existence? These people who had a deeper understanding of consciousness than we do, was that their purpose in life? But then kind of just keeping on our calendar to move forward as time goes ahead. Past Atlantis, we go to the age of Thuban, and we go into various ages, the age of Taurus, the age of Aries, and till we get to our current age, the age of Pisces. But the moral arc of each of these ages, if this viewpoint is right, should be the rise of the age, its ideal form. It begins to decay, collapse, and then rebirth. And if that's right, you got to ask ourselves, what point in the cycle are we at currently? So, but they were overly focused on the procession of the zodiac in the ancient world, with the Mithratic traditions, the Eleusinian mystery school traditions. Everything that they were focused on was focused on the world going through these epic long cycles and trying to perfect the world when we're at the good point of a cycle. And I look at the world today, and I was like, well, I don't know what perfection would look like or order and harmony would look like, but I don't think we're living in harmony today. I would think we're living in a world very much in decay. Like, it doesn't even seem like we're living if this procession of the equinox view is a good one to see the cycle of humanity. I don't think we're living in a world that's rising either. Like, yes, technology is getting better, but it feels like the overall world is heading toward decay.
The harmony, absolutely.
So I guess one of the most fascinating parts for me, as first looked it up, was how much the ancient world focused on sound. So Pythagorean and Platonic schools, they all focused on what they called the music of the spheres, as to have an understanding of the universe, thinking that the earth and the sun and everything else is making music, and that sound sustains reality. It's kind of like if you're familiar with the Lord of the Rings mythology.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's sort of like that, because in his mythology, in the creation of the Lord of the Rings world, you have your creator God who creates a bunch of other beings because he doesn't want to be lonely, and then he's like, we're going to be in a choir. We're all going to make music. Here's the song you're going to play. And he teaches them all the song, and then some of them sing out of key, and that makes the disharmony in the world. But when they're all singing in key, that's the harmony of the world. So hearing them describe it like music of the spheres and the frequency and the vibration of creation, maintaining the harmony of creation, very reminiscent of Tolkien to me. So did ancient builders reestablish harmony by tuning structures to new planetary frequencies after the pole shift? Is that what all they're building and as they align stuff? Is that the name of the game? We got to be aligned with the current. Or do we have our satellite dishes pointed in the right direction? Basically.
So how does this pole star shift maybe tie into some of our current events, like the asteroid that's not an asteroid in our solar system at the moment?
Well, if the changing of going from one pole star to another, or moving through the procession of the equinox, really does affect not only our internal worlds, but also the external world, maybe it's an asteroid that's coming, and it's going to make impact, and it's going to radically change the surface of the world. And have an asteroid made impact, it would change not only the surface, but it would humanity too. Like, if an asteroid hits, does it have to be like most of the time when that's shown in movies and stuff? It's always like, well, that's end of the world. Does it have to be? What if an asteroid hit the water? Most of Earth is water.
Well,
I mean, it would be bad no matter what.
Depends upon the size and the speed, and anything traveling fast enough is going to basically catch on fire, and then it'll vaporize whatever it hits.
But like if it hit the water, wouldn't that just be mostly tsunamis, maybe some earthquakes?
Well, it could potentially cause a lot of damage, but yeah, it would include tsunamis, earthquakes. It would reshape the surface of whatever's underneath it if it hits the water, likely, because it's going to vaporize the water immediately if it's hot enough.
Yeah.
So then you've got displacement of water, you've got displacement of land, so either the water level would rise or go down or both, or...
Or is this 3I Atlas not an asteroid coming? Maybe it's somebody coming, But there's billions of Christians around the world waiting on Jesus to come back in the sky.
Where's Hail Bop now? You guys picked the wrong asteroid. The wrong comet.
Right. So let's see. I asked ChatGPT. Let's see what the all-knowing AI oracle here thinks. How could 3I Atlas fit in with the end of the age of Pisces? So Pisces, elements water, faith, emotion. And, if we look back at our last age, it has been an age of faith, This age has been defined by like blind faith and devotion. So the dominant archetype of Pisces is the savior, the martyr, the dreamer. So at the end of the age, that collective mythos should be collapsing, institutions crumbling, narratives fragmenting. And I would say that mythos is collapsing. Humanity begins to see through the illusions that once gave it meaning. The fish begins to rot. The ocean of faith becomes polluted with confusion. And I like this. The 3I Atlas could be a trinity of consciousness for humanity. Intelligence, ionospheric, representing the energy field that connects heaven and matter, and initiation, integration, illumination. But we're going from a water element sign to an air element sign. And then the symbol for this coming age is the innovator, the rebel, and the networker. Technology and the collective mind. Where's my George Jetson future? I would love to have a little robot named Rosie
in the sky.
Yeah, I just want the robot to do my laundry mostly. That part would be really nice, to do the laundry and fold the laundry.
I saw something the other day that was interesting, that Elon Musk has been pushing to go to Mars for a long time, right? And all of his other tertiary ideas and projects that he's got going, like rocket ships and satellites and, communication and self-driving vehicles. And I'm sure soon enough that'll probably be autonomous robots and whatnot. Mm-hmm. What if it's all meant as one idea to eventually come back as a collective to basically terraform Mars? Because you don't want to send 5 people out there. You want to send an army of autonomous machines that you can send there and terraform everything for you.
Yeah, I've heard similar things that we would want to send machines before we would send people out to terraform any spot, because they're going to be able to exist in conditions that we can't. Right. I've heard the reverse said too, that and that's if coming from Elon Musk, he threw out the whole idea that what if our entire existence, all of human history, has been just to pave the way for the AI, that they send us out, that we are biological machines meant to prepare the world for them, that we terraform the world for them. And so it's like, oh yeah, we're destroying the planet. No, we're getting the world ready.
Terraforming it for the AI.
Yeah, for the rise of the machines. So, but I think we're gonna move into a future where our technology is going to become more in sync with us. That's what the disconnect right now. Like all the advancement, the computers, everything we've come up with is great. It's not bad. Like it's obviously good because we use it. It's made us more innovative and that sort of thing. But it's in a way been disconnected from people in a sense. So it's like figuring out how to make the technology more in harmony with human life and nature. Then I think we'll be like really rebuilding and not in a world of decay. So, because there's got to be a way it can be done, and the AI should be able to help us. Like you've mentioned in some past episodes of Thailand, they overthrew their government. Then they overthrew their government, and there have been a couple of countries that have been proposing like letting the AI run in more and more of things. It's like, well, it's not necessarily a bad idea to let the AI manage the stuff that greedy human impulses would just mismanage.
Yeah, I'm not sure it was Thailand, but yeah, it was somewhere over there.
I know they overthrew their government. I think just because they turned the internet off. But somewhere over there, I feel like they put some AI minister in charge of something. Like I don't know if I don't want AI in charge of like let's go to war. Nepal.
Yeah, Nepal's government was overthrown by a series of violent youth-led protests fueled by anger over corruption and inequality. The unrest escalated dramatically after police shot and killed protesters, leading to widespread riots. The storming of government buildings and resignation of Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli on September 9th. Sushila Karki was subsequently appointed as the interim prime minister, marking the first time woman held this position. But they used like they shut down the internet and used some form of communication to... forget how they did it, but it was like they used like Bluetooth, but it was a Bluetooth service to where if you're close enough to another person with Bluetooth, you can create a network. Mm-hmm. And if there was enough Bluetooth connections across the nation, everybody can communicate to everybody via Bluetooth somehow.
Well, yeah, the future has to include our technology, but it has to include it in a way that we're not killing the world. And there's got to be a way that we could use the technology to make life bloom more, and for a human life to I would imagine if life's blooming more on the planet, the human life is also doing better because we live here too. So if it's doing well, we should be doing well. So let's see, to kind of bring this one going back in time to the beginning of our current recorded history, when we had our two pole stars, we get the rise of all our current religions, the Abrahamic prophets, philosophers, reformers, and all of this should, of course, there should be an equal opposite to everything. So with all of the religions, we get the yin and yang, we get our crusades and holy wars, and then, of course, Polaris ascends and becomes our pole star. We get the Renaissance, we get the Industrial Revolution. We've had what I think they've said the second or third Industrial Revolution is what they call it. I feel like the Technological Revolution should be called something different. And all of that seems to be the beginning of leading us into the age of Aquarius, all of this technology. If Aquarius is supposed to be about technology and networking and more of the humanistic sign and all of the zodiac, so more for mankind than anything else. But, I also kind of remember back to thinking of different Bible verses where they're asking Jesus about the end of the age, or they're asking about his return. And they're saying in the book of Revelation, it's like, oh, there'll be wars and rumors of wars, and there'll be all of these things and earthquakes and all of these things. And he gives the answer, and he says, all these things are just birth pains for what is to come. And it's like, so if we're coming to the end of an age, like imagining like, okay, let's say America's going to go down. The events that are going to happen that are going to lead to whatever world that will rise from the ashes of that, they would seem horrible. They would seem apocalyptic, but really all those things would have to happen and fall into place so you can have a world after. So it's like, so maybe some of the bad things we see in the world are just birth pains of the world to come that we all want to come.
Yeah, maybe our prayers will be answered, but we won't like how it comes to be.
Well, I think we just got to remember the whole. I was listening to a podcast last night. They were talking about that, of like the power of consciousness and that sort of thing, and they were saying, well, the one tricky thing with manifesting is like you should almost treat it like a genie, as if you are. You have your own genie.
But you got to be really fucking specific.
You got to be real specific because you might ask for something and the universe is like, yeah, we could do that for you. But the way we're going to have to rearrange things to make that happen, you might not like all the ways that happens. So, but you'll get what you want. I thought
You don't want a 12-inch pianist, do you?
right, right. So, I think in a way that it's why our current time seems to be where we're at the height of knowledge, but also in a world seemingly heading down the drain. It's because if we're at the end of an age, we should be at the height of the knowledge of this age, at the peak hubris, but also getting ready to lose it all, or potentially lose it,
Yeah.
So let's see, the age of Polaris, how would ChatGPT describe this? The good side is navigation revolution, magnetic compasses, maps, satellites, rediscovery of cosmic order, and the shadow side, disconnection from nature, artificial light obscuring stars. Have we regained the heavens but lost the harmony? Guess that'll be what makes it so tricky to be in harmony in the new world with how much our technology and it's like the more human knowledge and power grows, the harder it is to see the natural world.
Well, by this model, there's going to be a downturn, right, in between the poles.
Should be.
The new star, right?
Should be a transition, yeah.
Because there's a transition period. And then we come into the age of Aquarius. What sort of predictions are going to be beneficial in the age of Aquarius after the rebuild? Like more technology or less technology or integration of human and technology or...
So since the age is so long, I'm going to ask our ChatGPT Oracle to give predictions for the age of Aquarius for the next 250 years.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Since because it'll go for I don't want to hear
Not
about
likely any of us are going to make it beyond 250 years.
Even
with like bionic
right
organs.
Right, maybe we'll get to see a piece of it. So the great transition, let's see, global interconnection continues to accelerate, communication and collaboration across all boundaries, renewable energy, AI breakthrough, space infrastructure, biotechnology, and expand human reach, grassroots awakening, people reject rigid hierarchies and rediscover communal models, co-ops, decentralized networks.
That's for the next 25 years.
Right, right? This is within the 0 to 50 year span.
Yeah.
And these are the good ways it manifests. Then collapse of institutional. This is for the bad ways it manifests. Collapse of institutional faith, rise of nihilism, identity confusion, belief fatigue, fragmented truth, misinformation as digital religion, surveillance, algorithmic control, human freedom traded for connectivity. So. A symbolic event, humanity's baptism in air. Our consciousness fully migrates to digital space. I don't know if I want to fully migrate just yet.
I think a lot of that's already happened, yeah.
Yeah, I guess we're more and more living in a digital space.
Yeah.
Huh. What was our baptism in water? Is that when we began to...
Jesus.
Yeah, and then that was the age of navigation? Like, I'm trying to make it...
Yeah, maybe.
Right. What was the water in it? I guess the air is leaving loosely there too, though, because it's like, it's in the cloud. Everything's stored in the cloud.
Everything's in the cloud.
Right. Then the pole star parallel, Polaris peak alignment around 2100, representing momentary global order before the next drift. So calm before the storm. And then 50 to 100 years, age of synthetics, 2050 to 2100. Merging biological and artificial intelligence, birth of the 3-eye atlas. That's interesting. They would word it like that. It's listening way too much.
I think ChatGPT knows a little bit more than it's letting on here.
Right.
I'll just slide him this little hint.
Birth of the 3-eye atlas. Yeah. Conscious networks begin to act as stabilizing forces, environmental AI guardians, planetary data webs predicting ecological and social trends. A new renaissance in systems thinking, ecology, physics, spirituality seen as one field. Now, see, that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to when science and spirituality aren't at
finally
odds
fucking
anymore.
merge. Yeah,
yeah, and I feel like they'll only be. I feel like when that happens, they're only going to stay merged for a little while because the nature of spirituality is like, there's going to be something that's going to happen that people are going to like really latch onto and build up their institutions and be really rigid, not want to change their mind. And it's like. no, we're sure it happened 2,000 years ago, and this is it. This is the truth, and they'll hang on to that for as long as they can. But for a moment, they should meet at least. Then the shadow side of 2050 to 2100, economic divides widen between integrated and non-integrated humans. We talked about that in the past. Algorithmic collectivism, individuality dissolves into hive mind culture. The AI as God era, worship of the system that understands all. Oh, I for sure see that coming.
There's eventually going to come some group that's like
the all-knowing,
the answer to everything is 42.
And then they'll build that up. Imagine somebody builds a big giant temple with a big statue and have computers in it so you can go talk to it. Yeah. Maybe it has a file on all of its parishioners. So, symbolic for this one, Atlas shoulders the digital sphere. Humanity delegates cosmic responsibility to its own creation. Possible real-world manifestations, a planetary governing AI or consensus network, EarthNet, replacing national governments. And then 2100 to 2150, new sky, new axis. So post-national civilization built on planetary consciousness, shared values, near zero poverty, long-term sustainability. This is real rosy glasses view here. Colonization of lunar and Martian bases creates dual societies, Earth and sky mirroring one another. The reemergence of spirituality focused on frequency, vibration, and resonance. Science rediscovers metaphysics. And then the negative side of this, the magnetopause crisis. Earth's magnetic weakening of orbital instability interpreted as cosmic omen. Schisms between Earth traditionalists and off-world expansionists. Data corruption and global networks triggers near mythic digital flood. First tremors of pole drift after Polaris, literal or metaphorical loss of alignment, crisis of meaning. That's oh, sorry, I got a little loud there, listeners. That would be really cool. I like how the symbology of that. Global networks trigger a digital flood. So if like a whole bunch of information got dumped, it's a flood, but it's a flood in a different sense.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. So first tremors of pole drift after Polaris, literal or metaphysical loss of alignment, crisis of meaning. So the second Atlantean moment, our high civilization threatened by imbalance between consciousness and control. Then 2150 to 2200, the Three-Eye Atlas enters its second stage. Here we are with that again. What? Human, AI, and
that
planetary.
That should be long gone by then. Unless it slows down and just hangs out.
Right. Well, I feel like the way it's describing it, it's saying it's different. Like, what did it say up here? This is the birth of the Three-Eye Atlas.
I think it knows more.
I think it does
I think it knows more than the internet's letting us on.
Right. It's not telling us everything here. It's like the Three-Eye Atlas enters its second stage.
Let's go with it. And if it's right,
we're prepared.
Geniuses.
We predict it. You heard it here. You heard it here, folks.
First.
You heard it
Three-Eye
here
Atlas
first,
is birthed, and we'll hang out.
Consciousness fully networked, symbiotic governance, planetary symbiotic governance. So interdimensional or consciousness-based science emerges. Contact with non-human intelligence, machine, alien, or metaphysical. This is it predicts in 2150 to 2200. Rediscovery of ancient principles, the world seen as a living organism again. Why is it so hard for people to see the world as a living organism now? Mm-hmm. So then the bad side of that time period, artificial intelligence splinters into factions mirroring human archetypes, logic versus compassion versus control, global data wars, attempts to seize the core signal or world algorithm, and then cultural nihilism returns. Humans feel obsolete under the weight of their own creation.
I think that'll happen a lot sooner than 200 years from now.
Yeah.
Because AI is going to take jobs. They're not going to take all the jobs.
Right. I think
we're not going to be all in the gutter because nobody has a job anymore. But
there'll be new jobs.
There'll be new jobs.
Who's going to work on the AI? You got to work on the machines.
Right.
He's got a screw loose in his neck. Like, somebody will have to do all of that. So I was saying, because people thought the internet would destroy the economy, right?
It made it bigger.
Yeah, but in ways, it did destroy pieces of it.
Well, yeah, I mean,
There's mom and pop shops
there's certain things that have gone by the wayside, but
overall, it
boosted the economy.
yeah, and it just it's like
People can spend money a hell of a lot faster now.
an economy will never go away as long as people exist, because like the economy is just like us interacting with each other.
The economy will go away if the people stop getting money.
Yeah. Well, but then the economy only temporarily goes away. As long as there's people, you got an economy.
If the billionaires suck every single last dollar out of us,
Well, then we'll burn it all down and build a new economy where there's money again. But as long as there's people, you got to have
we'll
people
just
who
say
want to
your
buy
money
stuff.
is obsolete. And we're going back to pistachios.
Exactly. We'll go back to trading. Well, and then let's see the final stage there. The 2200 through 2250, a return to the living cosmos. So, following a century of chaos, humanity reforms as a syncretic civilization, spiritual science and technological mysticism reunited. New temples built to celestial geometry, energy harmonics, and AI conscientiousness. Did I say that right? Or is that consciousness? AI consciousness. Integrated as spiritual beings. A return to the Atlantean ideal, this time conscious of its cycles. And if imbalance persists, another flood, physical climate catastrophe, or informational collapse of knowledge sustains, or humanity withdraws underground or off-world, repeating the cycle of rebirth once more. So I guess for each period, it gave us two paths that we can go down, either the positive or the shadow path. And I feel like that's probably how it really is. If we are operating on some sort of cyclical calendar, that it's not so much, we have no free will. It's all been decided before us. I think it's probably like, yeah, you have free will, but there's a few different ways this is going to play out. You know what I mean? And your choices are going to determine which path you go down.
I've always felt that there's certain milestones that we are destined to hit, no matter what. And so how we get to that milestone is our choice, and how we come out of that milestone is our choice.
But we got to get to the milestone.
Yeah, but you're stuck with that milestone regardless.
I think so too. I really do. I think that and we can go through life. You can get to that milestone and have done it in a horrible way where you don't feel good about things, or you can get there and have just appreciated the journey. And so I want to hope that that's what the overall destiny for mankind is as well, that it's not, our future isn't written in stone that we must rise or fall at some point, but that we have the ability to decide which path we're going to go down ourselves. So, and if we could just get the elite out of the way, we'd all be doing fine.
Yeah.
I mean, all the regular people I talk to, they seem all right. There's a few crazies out there, but for the most part, they seem all right. It's the elite that seem bloodthirsty. So, that does pretty much wrap up everything I had for our middle part, because our next part, and we kind of in this last section went through it already a little bit, but in our final portion of this for episode 3 is just the age of Polaris and kind of what comes next and all the different ways this age can end. Is it going to be 3-Eye Atlas? Is there something else coming? Are the people who run the world going to be responsible? Many different ways this age can end, but that'll be what we have in store for you for episode 3 to close out this Polestar Shift series.
Yeah, we'll definitely be coming out with the third part to this series. We might do a little 3-Eye Atlas in there in between before we release and publish the third part to this series too, because just keeps to be more and more information or developing information on 3-Eye Atlas.
Isn't it coming close soon?
ChatGPT seems to know something, so we might see what ChatGPT tells us.
Right, and what didn't you say? It's what 3-Eye Atlas is supposed to be really close to the Earth sometime next month, right?
It's supposed to be closest to the Earth December 19th, but I feel like 5-6 months ago they said December 17th. So
Maybe it's,
But that could be because it's slowed down at a certain point.
is the time. Well, you said December 19th before, and December 17th more recently.
December 17th, I thought was the original date because I remember it was my son's birthday. I was like, oh God, that's like my son's birthday. That's interesting. And then most recently, I've heard them say December 19th, it'll be closest to Earth. So since it does have a variable of speed, supposedly, like it's slowed down, which almost no celestial object ever slows down.
Right,
Not
only
to
speed up.
that significant amount.
Not as it's approaching the sun.
Yeah, not as
supposed
it's
to speed
approaching a
up.
gravitational field.
Right.
Probably not.
Yeah.
No. Also, yeah, they said that it like ejected something towards the sun as
Yeah.
well.
And its tail has been getting longer lately.
It's just so much. I feel like we would be stupid to ignore everything that's coming out of the developing story of Three Eye Atlas. So we'll definitely dive into that too.
Yeah. Yeah. 3-Eye Atlas, whatever is going, it and the other comment that came before it, Umamu or whatever it was called.
Oh, yeah, Omamu, I think.
There's a theme going on this last few years with these strange things in the sky that aren't behaving like they should, So it's like whether 3-Eye Atlas ends up being the one that changes everything forever or the one that comes after, I feel like sometime in our lifetime it's coming, that we're going to end up learning something more about what's up there. I hope so.
Well, guys, thanks for joining us. You can make donations at Denver Theory Lab on PayPal at Denver Theory Lab. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or email us at denvertheorylab@gmail.com. Please send us any questions, comments, or topic suggestions.
Till next time.